Can you hear me okay? Is that good? Is it too loud? No? Okay, so I'm Sam McCann, in case you didn't already know. I know just about everybody in the room personally, almost everybody, I think. If I missed shaking your hand on the way through, I apologize. In an interest of getting this thing started, I wanted to get up here, and in the interest of getting back on schedule, we're going to omit a couple of speakers, and we're just going to kind of dive right in. But a couple of things I would like to take care of first is I would like to open with a prayer. I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could we all stand while we pray and say the pledge? So please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. We thank you for the opportunity to live in the greatest country on earth, to live in the great state of Illinois, where we have opportunity to serve, opportunity to move forward, opportunity to move it forward into a future that includes everyone. We thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And we ask you to go with us in all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Now, the flag's right over here on the wall. You'll join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, before you sit down, I would like to, over in the Senate, I'm sorry I was a little late getting here. We had session today. I was a little late getting here, a little later than I wanted to be. A couple weeks ago, to honor the victims of the Parkland shootings, one of the senators stood up and said we should have a moment of silence for them. And so I think we should have a moment of silence for them, but not only them, all the victims of that kind of violence, but we also, you know, I've brought it up to my colleagues over in the Senate. No one's taken me up on this offer, on this idea. We also have 13 veterans in the Quincy Veterans Home who didn't give their lives on the battlefield. They gave their lives in a facility that the state of Illinois runs. And if the state of if that facility was privately run, the people in government would show up and probably put those people in jail for allowing that to happen. So those 13 veterans, along with a lot of employees and other veterans getting sick, they've lost their lives, they've gotten sick. And then also, there's a gentleman by the name of Joe Dominguez. He is the Sergeant at Arms of the Illinois Senate. He was a Marine, he was a sheriff's deputy, now he's the Sergeant at Arms of the Illinois Senate, and his 22-year-old son died unexpectedly a couple of days ago. And so in honor of all those people, do we have a moment of silence, please? Okay, thank you, folks. Thank you for humoring me. So, I wanted to come back here to this place because this is a really special place for me. The 50th District is a lot like the old 49th District. When I very first started running, we used to have meetings here about once a month. There was a group called the 912 Tea Party Group. Does everybody remember that, or most folks remember that? Interestingly, that organization got started, not just here in Pike County, but across the country. It started with this one simple tenet. It said that career politicians and essentially the two-party system had failed us, and that they didn't care whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, an independent, a libertarian, an agnostic. Whatever you were, if you embraced the concept of American exceptionalism and the concept of service, listening to the people, representative government, you know, there would be a platform for you. They weren't just going to endorse Republicans. They wanted to endorse Americans who believed in something. And so after I won in 2010, we won together. After they won a lot of races around the country, you know, what ended up happening is it seems like the leadership of those organizations traded what they had to barter to the Republican establishment to kind of become the militant side of the Republican Party, right? They abandoned the whole concept of being good Americans and good Illinoisans and good citizens, and just wanted to talk about let's all be good party people, which is, of course, the exact opposite of what they started out saying they wanted to do. So, after I got there, I tried very diligently, and I hope I've succeeded, because I've tried really hard, to vote on every issue as it came before me, trying to be the voice of the district. I think you send me there to not just be a rubber stamp for one particular person or one particular party. You send me there to be your eyes and your ears and your voice and your vote in the Illinois Senate. So I took a lot of grief for that early on because I didn't just go along with what the party said to do. But boy, once a fellow got elected by the name of Bruce Rauner, did I ever take some grief for that, right? And so I'm going to try to really bring this along as quickly as possible, but bear with me. And we're going to have an opportunity for you to ask some questions at the end also. And I am going to make an announcement here in just a little bit. That being said, after the governor got elected, and before the governor got elected, if you'll remember 4 years ago, almost to the day, we were here in Pike County. We were in several other counties. I endorsed Senator Kirk Dillon to be governor, to win that primary. Not because I thought he was perfect, but because I thought he was the best of the four. That being said, I remember standing right down here, or right up here, uptown where we had the Republican meeting, and I remember saying, you know, if Rauner wins the nomination, I won't vote for him for governor in the fall. And I had a few people in that Republican meeting get mad at me and say, well, you're not being a good Republican. And I tried to explain that night, 4 years ago, that if you elect this guy as your next governor, there's not going to be much of a Republican Party left. And here we are 4 years later, and in case you aren't paying attention, there's not much of a Republican Party left. And quite frankly, I don't think there's much of a Democratic Party left either. And I think, you know, the way we study the parties of old today is the way it's going to be for our children and grandchildren if the leadership of both of these parties don't get their act together. Because we take an oath every second Wednesday of every odd year starts a new General Assembly. It's a 2-year period. The General Assembly lasts for 2 years. And we raise our right hands and we take an oath to protect and defend the constitutions of the United States of America and the state, and to do what's best for the state as a whole. We don't say, I pledge allegiance to Bruce Rauner, or Mike Madigan, or the Democrat Party, or the Republican Party. I don't pledge allegiance to any of those people. I pledge my allegiance to our Constitution and to the people. And so I've always done my level best to make sure and deliver true representative government. As a matter of fact, if you stop and think about it, you know, you hear people say all the time that we live in a democracy. We don't really live in a true democracy. If we lived in a true, solid, rock-solid, total democracy, everybody would vote on everything. A pothole couldn't be filled, a bill couldn't become a law, nothing would happen until everybody voted. Well, that wouldn't be a very efficient way to govern, right? Especially a country as big as ours. So we have what's called a democratically elected constitutional representative republic. It's a representative republic. It's democratic because every citizen gets an opportunity to vote, but the representatives are supposed to go there and represent the people. I represent you in the Senate. You have a representative over in the House of Representatives. And again, when we go there, if we, as duly elected senators and representatives, if all we do is what the party says to do, if all we do is what Rauner says to do because he had the most money and could buy the party, and by the way, the reason he tried to buy the Republican Party instead of the Democratic Party was 4 years ago he knew he could buy the Republican Party a lot cheaper than he could buy the Democratic Party. That's what it boils down to. So when we go there and we go back in a room, they call that caucusing. The Republicans go in one room, the Democrats go in the other, and we caucus. And when we go back there and we talk about things, only the elected senators and representatives over on that side are allowed to go in there and hear what's said in there. And what they expect us to do is to come out and do what we're told. Now, I want to ask all of you here, is that what you elect me to do? Because if it is, you elected the wrong guy. I thought you elected me to listen to you, not to listen to Bill Brady or Christine Radogno or Bruce Rauner. If I got it wrong, please tell me. And you know what? I won't run anymore. Because again, I thought I was running to represent the 250,000 people of the 50th Senate District, not to represent the wishes of one or two people at the top of a pyramid in a party. Yeah, and so, if you stop and think about it, if all that we're supposed to do is the Democrats are all supposed to go in this room, and the Republicans are all supposed to go in this room, and the Democrats are just going to do what Madigan says to do, and the Republicans are just going to do what the governor says to do, well then why do we even have a legislative branch of government? Why are you paying me? Why are you paying the other 176 legislators? Why are we paying people per diem and mileage to show up in Springfield and represent us if it's all just a show, if it's just a facade? There's no reason, right? The governor could show up, go out on the floor and hit all the buttons. The speaker could show up, go out on the floor and hit all the buttons. And it would be that simple. We don't even need a legislative branch of government. But that's not how the Constitution says it's supposed to be. The Constitution says that we have a representative republic, we have a Senate, we have a House. They form the legislative branch, and they are a co-equal branch of government to the executive and the judicial. So, fast forward to 2015, I believe it was August of 2015, there was a bill that would have allowed for arbitration for state employees. So, you know, that bill did not give anybody a raise, didn't give any extra vacation time, didn't give anybody a day off. All it said is if the governor and the state employees couldn't reach an agreement, if they reached an impasse, a point at which they weren't going to get anywhere, they weren't going to have any success, we would bring in an arbitrator. We would bring in a disinterested third party who would figure it out, who would make them come to the table and who would figure it out. So that's all that bill did. Now, they spent about $5 million telling you that I was Satan incarnate, telling all kind of lies and all sort of untruths and half-truths, trying to get you to believe that I was somebody I'm not. And of course, this is where I give you the credit. You know, I've never won an election. I've always been on the winning team, and I appreciate that because you guys have always been there for me. You saw through it, and you knew better than to believe that nonsense. But it's amazing how many people don't understand that. And if I didn't have the relationship with so many people one-on-one around this district, you wouldn't have. So I went down to Governor Rauner's office a couple of times. He called me down to his office to talk about this bill because he did not want me to vote. He didn't want any Republican, he didn't want anybody to vote for it. But by golly, if a Republican voted for it, that Republican was going to have hell to pay. And he called me down there a couple of times. And the last time he called me down, he said, you know, you can avoid, it was the day it was actually the day that we took the vote in the Senate to override his veto of that bill. And he said, you will not have a primary if you just vote no, or take a walk. I could do like a lot of legislators when it came to that bill, Democrats and Republicans both, to try to make the governor happy, to try to score points, to try to get the governor to make a big contribution to their campaign fund. A lot of them went out of state. Some of them went out of town. Some of them just voted present. Some of them didn't vote the way their constituents wanted them to vote. They just voted the way the governor wanted. But whatever, as long as I didn't vote yes, there was 4 or 5 ways that I could make him happy, and one way to make him angry. And he looked at me and said, I will destroy you and your family if you go through with this. And I said, Governor, here's the deal. I would rather do what I know is right in my heart and face you and your people in a primary than have to face my constituents tomorrow and not be able to look them in the eye. So let me ask you folks a question. You remember back in 2010 when I was running against DeMuzio, the Democrat, and the millions of dollars they spent slandering my name? You know, do you remember that? I do. I don't let it define me, but I certainly remember it. Then I wasn't in office but a few months when we redistricted, right? And so I lost the east half of the district, kept the west half, And in lieu of the east half, we picked up Sangamon County. So now all of a sudden the Sangamon County Republicans thought it would be a good seat to hold, and they primaried me, and that's fine. You know, that's what this country is about, running races. As a matter of fact, I think contested races are a good thing. When you don't have a contested race, you don't have a choice, and the people should always have a choice. Unfortunately, when we run races today, especially at the higher levels, it gets into a level of nastiness that nobody should have to. It really should make us ashamed as citizens of the state and the nation at the way this is allowed to play out. That's a whole other conversation. So we won that race. Thank you very much. I didn't win it. We won it. 2 races. Then comes 4 years later, comes the 16 primary that I was just talking about. They outspent us 5-1, 6-1, something like that. Never expected in a million years for us to win. They didn't. Right? They already had the party planned. It was quite the shindig too, from some of the pictures people were snapping and sending to me from their phones. And they could not believe it, but we won. And you know why we won? Because we were right. And we did the right thing, and we stuck together. And they never thought we would. They thought they could divide us. And that's what the problem is both parties think that they can divide the people and sneak out a victory for themselves. So that being said, I want to know how many people here, if I told you that somebody was going to spend $5 million slandering your name, and all you had to do was walk outside, make sure your car was okay, and then you could walk back in and say, oh, doggone it, I'm sorry I missed that vote. People did that. And you could have avoided that. You could have had maybe... There was a fellow by the name of Ken Duncan up north, a Democrat, who happened to stay in New York City a couple of days to watch a tennis match conveniently and couldn't get back here to take the vote they needed over in the House because the governor gave him $1 million for his campaign fund. You see, folks, this is what's going on. And when I made the decision to put myself and my family through a living hell, and that's what really hurt. I never had to think twice about putting myself through it, but I did have to think twice about putting my family through it because I knew what was coming from these people. And when I said, Governor, no, I'd rather face you and your people than have to face my constituents tomorrow and try to look them in the eye. And I also didn't want to have to look my son and the rest of my family in the eye and explain to them why I was a coward. I'm not a coward. I'm a servant of the people elected to go there and do a job. And I'm proud to say that I stared them down, did the job, lived to tell about it. Much of that thanks to you. And I want to say thank you. I want to give you guys a round of applause. Now, that being said, we're going to get to what we're here for really quickly. What are we doing on time? What time we got, guys? My eyes aren't good enough to see that clock back there. 6:35. Just getting started. Like a Pentecostal preacher, just getting started. So, that being said, you know, it's interesting too that we have an interesting phenomenon going on over in Sangamon County and throughout Illinois politics, especially in Republican politics. Sangamon County is a big dog. Is this thing sinking on me? Have you not noticed that? They are a big dog. They think they're a big dog, and they are a big dog, no doubt about it. And they're trying to become an even bigger dog. They're going about it in the wrong way, and if we don't stop them, you're going to lose, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. This is not good news for you because you're going to lose your autonomy in the 50th District, in Central Illinois, in Pike County. Morgan County's already lost it. Now this is the part that's going to hurt. I told some people before that there's going to be some things I'm going to talk about that's going to hurt. Not them particularly, but the concept. You know, in Morgan County a couple of years ago, see, this goes in line with the vote that I took. There were 3 representatives, Republican members of the House of Representatives, who represented Sangamon County or areas around Sangamon County who would have voted like I did. They couldn't go out and explain to their constituents. When you receive thousands of phone calls saying, please vote yes, and only a handful of phone calls saying vote no, you got to honor that commitment. And so what did they do? They didn't take $1 million in campaign contributions. They didn't go out and check on their car. They went ahead and took some $150,000 a year jobs to be Director of Agriculture, Director of Transportation, Director of DNR, to get out of there, right? And that way the governor could appoint people to take their places who would vote exactly the way he told them to do. And so it started with that. And when that last fella, Poe, left the legislature, the way they appointed a gal from Sangamon County, she's currently there. There was a fellow who thought it was owed to him, and the Sangamon County Republicans thought that seat was owed to him also, by the name of Gray Noah, who ran against me in 2012. And to placate him, they made room for him over in Morgan County. They pushed their incumbent Republican Morgan County State's Attorney out of office, and instead of replacing him with a Morgan County Republican, they replaced him with a Sangamon County Republican, Gray Noah. And then here last year, after I went through that to hell and back with that primary, they decided to bring Poe in here to speak at the Republican event. I begged them not to. I said, this is all a part of them trying to take you over, and you just don't know it yet. They went ahead with it. They had Poe come over and speak. And then they get McClure, the fellow wanting to run against me, or is running against me for the Senate. Saying, that's fine, elections are fine. I say, I think they should be contested. But I don't think it should all be lined up and set up for one or two people in a back room to control it. And if you guys over here in Pike County and down in Calhoun County and down in Jersey County and back over in Morgan County and in Scott County and really in Sangamon County is going to have to step up to the plate and stop this. You got to get your own house in order before you can start casting stones at other people's houses. So there's a lot of folks in Sangamon County going to have a come to Jesus meeting with the mayor on this issue. They're trying to take you over. And it's interesting, over in Morgan County, they've tried to make every kind, know that the Republicans have tried to make every kind of deal in the world to throw me under the bus just to try to get favor with the Sangamon County Republicans. This is the kind of stuff that goes on. This is what happens when you elect people who are allegiant to the party and not to the people. And so why we came here tonight, and like I say, I'm going to make this announcement. I'm going to have somebody come up here, say a few words, and then we'll take your questions, basically as long as you want, within reason. About midnight or so, I'm going to have to go. I got to be at work at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I came here tonight. I'm not going to endorse, or I'm not going to announce my plans tonight. I am going to announce my plans in the next 30 days. You will know definitively within the next month, give or take a couple of days, what I'm going to do. Run for the Senate, run for governor, what I'm going to do. But I am going to do as an independent. I can't run as a Republican or a Democrat because I missed the opportunity to be on the ballot. And that's okay, I intentionally did that. So I will run as an independent. I plan to run as an independent for governor or for senator. We're going to wait to make that decision. But I do believe we can have a voice in what's going to happen in the upcoming election. And I came here to endorse Jonas Petty to be your next state representative for the 100th district. We need somebody who will go there and be a voice for the people and not just be another rubber stamp for the governor or anybody else, whether that governor is Bruce Browner, Jeannie Ives, me, or whomever it might be. We have a state representative who waits to take his marching orders from the party, from the back room, and not from you. And we can't handle that anymore. I'm a resident of the 100th district. I have the utmost respect for Representative David Smart. I consider him a friend. I respect him personally. But I've lost my faith in his ability to lead and to properly represent the people of this district. So at this point, I would like to announce that Jonas Petty has my full faith, confidence, and support and endorsement in the upcoming election. And I'd like Jonas, wherever he's at, if he's still here, if he hadn't given up on his opportunity to speak, I'd like for Jonas Petty to come up and introduce himself to you, say a few words, and then we will take your questions and comments. Jonas, come on up.